Have you ever felt or had moments in your life where you felt uncomfortable because you went against yourself after agreeing to doing something that you really didn't want to do? And then later on, you ask yourself, why did I do that? I should have just done what I really wanted to do. And then you're hard on yourself about that. But yet, it's already done. Or have you ever heard anyone tell you, you're just a bit too sensitive, or you're just really intense, or you're just thinking too much about it? But yet, in your mind, you're like, no, I just feel it differently. If you answered yes to any of these, or it does resonate with you at some point in your life, I'm going to say this very clearly. You are not crazy. You are conscious. I'm your host, Jasmine Grujon, and on today's episode, I'm going to be doing the continuation of the last episode, What is a Cycle Breaker? And in this episode, I want to get more in depth about what are the spiritual signs of being a cycle breaker and what does that look like and what does that feel like in your everyday life as you go through the life journey and have to experience a vastness of all these emotional states and everything that is not only yours, but those around you, which some would call it a curse and some would call it a gift. It all depends on the person you're asking. And the reason why I wanted to go ahead and discuss this and get more comfortable with discussing about this topic is because when I myself was going through my own journey in the beginning, I remember there was not that much information about this topic. No one was really explaining what this was and the things that you actually go through as you're waking up to the reality of what is it that you are experiencing yourself. Because you quickly start to notice that your experience is quite different from most. And what you perceive as normal, in fact, isn't as normal as you thought once you start talking about these things with others. And I'll give you a few examples so that you can understand where I'm coming from. So, for the first example, I wanted to say that when you are waking up to this truth or to being conscious, what's happening is you are not only experiencing your experience like everyone else, but you are experiencing from the point of view of your experience, their experience, and the outside experience. So put it as a vast ability to see everything from multiple point of views. Why? Because when you have multiple points of views, you don't have a subjective opinion, meaning you're not only condoning or accepting what you're feeling internally as you being in that experience yourself, but you're also trying to relate, understand, and really resonate with what is really occurring here. Why? Because you realize that people only experience their experience through the lenses of their perception. And when you are experiencing the world through the lenses of your own perception, guess what happens? Most of us don't agree with each other in many forms, in many aspects, in many topics, in many beliefs, and so on. Why? Because everyone is always speaking from their point of view based on their history, based on their experience, based on their teachings and traditions and religions and traumas and insecurities and fears and so on. The list is going on and on and on, right? As to what would actually influence how you choose to perceive your life. Now, as a cycle breaker, if you didn't go to see the last episode where I discussed basically what are the personality traits and the signs that you will indeed be a cycle breaker. When you are in that element, in that gift, which can sometimes feel like a curse, your perception is your own as well, based on your own experience as well, based on your beliefs and so on. But for whatever reason, you have a pull to not only perceive your point of view, but also see it from everyone else's point of view so that you can be fair in your decision, so that you can resonate with everybody's point of view, because you, in that being of the cycle breaker, always want to make sure that you are doing the right thing, and not necessarily doing the right thing in the man-made form, doing the right thing on a soul level. making sure that whatever the decision is going to be, it's not depleting or affecting or taking anyone against their own free will on a soul level. And you know this internally because when you go against yourself as a cycle breaker, it is too intense to just let it go, right? Because when you agree to doing things that you really don't want to do, or when you don't stand up for something that you know is unfair, or when you enable toxic behaviors and so on that don't serve you or anyone around you, it doesn't sit well with you. There's this uncomfortable element that your soul is just trying to break through the barrier of whatever doesn't allow you to speak if you don't act on that pull, that drive that makes you take the stand, that makes you do what's right for you and everyone involved. Because it is only then when you feel at peace. It is only then when you feel calm. It is only then when you know that you are staying solid in your truth. Because to go against yourself would create such an internal turmoil within yourself that then, in the long run, with time of doing over and over again, it turns into unnecessary symptoms, from anxiety to depression to not wanting to be around people, to wanting to overextend yourself to people, to having hyper independence, to codependency, from telling everything to everyone to completely isolating and saying nothing to no one. There's so many ways it could go about it. It all really depends on the individual themselves, which is why not one shoe fits all, which is why I like to remain open on the full spectrum of all the ways that this can go and look and feel for all of us, because everyone has their own journey, everyone feels their own sensory differently, and intensities, all of it is different. Some of us are more intense and some of us are more stoic in our abilities. Some of us can completely switch and completely release of whatever doesn't serve us, and some of us it becomes extremely difficult to do so. So based on the lessons, based on whatever it is that you came here to break yourself and your lineage out of, that is all going to be based on the assignment and the lesson that you came here to learn. So because of this, there's going to be a vastness of what the symptoms are and the signs for everyone. And I can only speak for myself and those that I've spoken with previously about the same thing, that also have and share in the resonance of this information with their own personal experiences, as well as the ones that I've done research on and I've heard about. So for one, the first spiritual ability that you will notice in terms of when you're first waking up to the truth that you just can't normalize what everyone else normalizes is you will find that when someone or you're commanded or recommended to do something that you don't want to do, or that just doesn't feel right to you, or that you don't have the proper information as to why you need to do that, it's something that more than likely you won't want to do and you won't do. And fear tactics normally won't work on you, because being the cycle breaker, it gives you this level of confidence and bravery and courage that is needed to do it, that you don't care. It's almost like, try to intimidate me and I'm going to feed off of that and I'm going to stand even firmer. So that falls around the line of when you feel that something or someone is trying to control you in any which way. It can be as a toddler being forced to eat something you don't want to eat. That will be an episode. that would be an episode for you, because you will refuse it. You will throw yourself on the ground. You will cry. You will be beaten sometimes to eat your food that you don't want, until the pattern is recognized that you're not the child that's going to be fed what they don't want to eat, because you just won't do it. You would rather not eat nothing at all than eat what you don't want. That's the first signs that you have a level of internal authority over yourself, that as soon as you feel a form of an authority making you go against your own will, for example, to eat something you really don't want to eat because you just don't like it, it's going to trigger that no, it's a no. It's a no, right? And that's only as a toddler you're going to experience something like that. I'm just giving that as an example. The reason for this is because the reasoning why most lineages are stuck in the looping of a cycle of abuse, of neglect, of codependency, of poverty, of fears, of insecurities, is because there was never a stance against what wasn't serving them. There was never a stance against what didn't align with what they really wanted. They did what they were told without questioning it, without fighting against it, resisting it, and to not cause conflict, to not cause inconvenience, to not create any form of conflict that would actually make them maybe not belong to a group, to a society, to whatever. There was a moment of oppression or a moment of silence that took place maybe generations ago, or maybe just one generation ago, or maybe 10 generations ago, that continues on. Because if it wasn't for that, maybe that level of abuse wouldn't exist. And I'm going to put this as an example to give it more clarity. So when we have ancestors that were owned by slaves, we didn't have a right to do what we wanted. We didn't have a right to eat what we wanted. In fact, we probably ate the scraps. We probably slept on the floor on top of each other. It was something that we had to cope with because we had no other choice. That was a circumstance. That was the living conditions at that time in our lives, in our generations ago. And we enabled that until we engraved it in our genetic imprint, right? And I talk about the epigenetics aspect in the first episode, but on this episode, I wanted to get more into the spiritual. So because we have lineages, most of us, whether we know it or not, that were oppressed, that were enslaved, that were abused, that were raped, we had to endure a great level of trauma, a great level of fear, a great level of hopelessness, a great level of being bucked, even for men, where our honor as a man was destroyed in front of our family, so that we can be, as men and women, controlled, so that we can listen when our masters told us what to do. So when you have massive levels of trauma in a generation, for whatever reason, as we're still getting to know more about the genetics and the epigenetics and how it activates itself and so on, for whatever reason, when we are experiencing situations like maybe it's just a family member that, instead of resonating with, let's say, the toddler not really wanting that to eat because they don't like it and doing something else for them, which will eventually happen once the child says no a few times. The family will readjust itself. They'll know that that child doesn't like eating what they don't want, so we're going to either let her starve or let him starve, because they would use that over eating what we give them, or we figure something else so they can eat, because if not, they won't eat. And that child is still in my responsibility. I am responsible for making sure they eat. So if this is becoming an issue, then let me readjust myself. So even as a child, you can make a difference when you have the energy of a cycle breaker. It doesn't take a whole collage of events and experiences and all these things. Simply saying no in its full sentence can make a vast difference. When you're willing to tolerate not eating rather than eating something you don't want, when you're willing to tolerate getting beaten than to eat what you want, you're creating a stance. You're making a statement. You're standing solid in your decision for your own autonomy. So I put it as an example, as a child element, because that's how early it starts. When you're a cycle breaker, it's going to start as early as that. And I've seen it play out in myself, but also other children. And I see the fire in them, and I'm like, yes, you stand up for yourself. You choose what you want for yourself. This is why the only person I would ever want to control is myself. I don't like to put my wants and needs over anyone, because everyone has their free will, and that makes me sleep well at night, and that makes me be in my peace, because I'm not frustrated or disappointed about anyone else's choices. I let everyone decide what they want to do, and whether I want to accept it in my life or not, that is my decision. That's the only part and the only person I have control over, right? And because I don't want anyone to do that to me, I never do it to others. And I learned that the hard way, because remember, when you're coming from a lineage of generations of not only the victim, but also the oppressor in many cases, you have both those aspects within yourself. These are elements that still exist within your imprint. And depending on the situation, depending on the scenario, depending on the relationship, all of these things will activate themselves through the process of epigenetics if given the opportunity. And that is the only time when you have your own willpower and free will to choose, will I continue this generational imprint, or will I reframe it into something more empowering for myself and those around me, something more healthy and functional for everyone around me and myself? Is it something that I want to enhance? Is it something that I want to completely eliminate? Because remember, you're going through the trials and the eras of the molding of that genetic imprint as a cycle breaker. As you grow up through the journey of life and go through the courses and the challenges and the levels and the ages and the teachings as your lineage and generations ago went through as well. Because in order for you to break it, you have to go through the experience to embody it. There's no other way you can do that in the physical. In fact, the only way you can actually change genetic imprints is by living through the experience that allows you to embody the vibrational signature that is carried within the genetic imprint. And I don't want to go into the quantum field and all that, but that is the spice behind the madness. The only way we can equalize the imbalances that have occurred generations after generation is by eventually, after we are tilting the generation only to one side, being rigid into one side, doing the same thing over and over again, where we're not very harmonious in our being, where we are no longer balanced, where we are not allowing the infinite vastness of our full potential to be co-created in our experience of life, generation after generation, because no one within the generation is willing to step out of the loop of whatever behavior is continuing, that is when you have enough energy on one side to birth the equalizer that's going to bring it into the balance. So basically, when you think about it from the bigger picture of manifestation or creation or reality, a cycle breaker is just a person that comes to balance the scale. Because the scale is like this, and if it's like this, you're taking it away from harmony. And when you take it away from our harmony, it cannot create in a harmonious way because it's off balance. And when it starts to balance out, you're going to start seeing different behaviors. You're going to start seeing it could even happen with children that are being born. Let's say it's only boys being born, and all of a sudden when the scales start balancing out, you start seeing the girls generations later. Like, we can barely count any girls that were born. But when the scales are balancing, now we have the right energy to bring in the souls that can fit into the equation, where maybe the females can actually live in the experience that they want to live in that lineage, because it has been too overpowered by the opposite. So this is just one of the many examples of what that looks like when the scales are actually balancing themselves out. So the first sign was basically you have this strong desire to say no to the things that don't feel like a yes to you. You don't care what it is. You don't care who's telling you. Intimidation doesn't work on you. In fact, you want to prove a point so much that you would rather go through the consequences of not saying yes to prove the point that you're not accepting it. So when you have that engraved in you, because it's now a code in you, you came here with the code to do that very same thing. You're looking at life differently. When you saw that everyone in the lineage accepted this behavior, accepted this abuse, accepted this lack, accepted this path, accepted whatever they've been repeating. And when you look at it, you see the dysfunction in it. When you look at it, you see the lack of vitality or life that path may bring. You start to ask yourself, I don't know if that's something I want to repeat. I don't know if that's something I want to follow. Because would I be following it because that's all I know? Or would I be following that because that's what I was told to do? Or am I following that because it's really something I want to do? So when you start asking yourself those questions, what happens is you ask the question, but you're not asking to make anybody outside of you happy. You're asking because you want to make sure that you're happy. Why? Because you quickly start to realize that everyone that's miserable around you, whether it's family, whether it's friends, anyone that you have been observing throughout the years, or even in a second, you start to realize that there's a pattern. Those that are happy have been doing this. Those that are not happy have been doing this. Well, guess what's going to happen? I'm going to see what makes me happy and what makes me not happy. I might try what everyone followed for a while and see how I feel within that. See if it matches who I am truly, and if I can maintain myself in my sovereign self, and if I can do that in that energy, in that environment, in that path, in that career, in that relationship, then it could work. Because as long as I'm not experiencing this abuse and enabling this behavior and being depleted and becoming ill, and I am sane and healthy, I mean, I don't see why it would be a problem, right? Because if my health is optimum, my mental state is well-rounded and grounded, I'm not stressing, and if there is a stress, I can overcome it quickly. And if there is an inconvenience or a disagreement, we can talk it through. And if there is honesty and morals at play, then I don't see why it won't work, right? But this is a trick. You tell yourself that, and that is your intention behind it. Because indeed, it's not that the path that was taken was bad. It's not that it's the worst. But you see the flaws in it. You see the dysfunction in it. You see the imbalance of equal give and takes. You see where people are functioning out of insecurities or out of wounds or feeling inadequate or out of fears and scarcity and lack mentality. And when you're looking at this through the observation throughout life, you quickly realize that people are, whether they chose that path or not, the way they're choosing to perceive their experience is what's giving them the experience. Because I can see this group here having this experience and they seem good in this department, but then on the other side, they got this negative thing going on. And then you have this side of the spectrum where it's like, it's good on the other side, but then they have this going on. So now you, as the equalizer, all you want to do is where's the middle point? Where is that middle point where not only do I get the benefits of certain things, but where can everyone involved be happy? Where can everybody involved be truly in the alignment to receive, let's say, a relationship, or to be in true alignment to be equipped for a certain position, or to be in true alignment to not be toxic and to be healthy? You know, where is the left turn here? Wherever that's not happening, that's where I want to discover. So the catch-22 is you go with the intention to make things work, to see what that's all about, because you grew up in certain environments where that's just the right thing to do. That's just what everybody's doing. You know, you don't really see the wrong in it until you're in it. And when you're in it, you start to realize, I find myself following a pattern that I was aware of, but it was not until I myself became embodied in this pattern through the circumstances or the relationship or so on, that I now see it through the lens of my own experience. So now I have a deeper understanding. Not only do we have the understanding of observing it in our lineage, it playing out through our families and friends and so on, but now when we grow up and we, let's say, get in a relationship and we see how difficult relationships could be once you start to settle down and bring children and all these things. You see the blessing in it, you see the good things in it, but then you also start to see where it goes sour. You start to see where it becomes dysfunctional. You start to see what was enabled, and the moment that once it went there, the no should have came about, but it doesn't. And then you're like, okay, so this is how it gets here. So this is how that started. So this is the behavior that led to that result. I get it now from my own experience, right? So now you have the point of view from maybe observing your lineage growing up, seeing what it was from the outside, right? You just see it. You just see adults adulting. You see adults working and stressing and arguing and, you know, going through certain elements that put them in distress or, you know, scandals or whatever. And as a child, you're just seeing it from the outside and you don't really quite resonate with it because you're not an adult yet. You don't know what it is to feel betrayed or lied to. You don't know what it feels to feel overwhelmed or stressed yet because you don't have responsibilities of taking care of a family and a home yet. So you're seeing it from the point of view of a child. And from the point of view of a child, what happens is all you want is your parents to be there when you need them. all you want is to feel safe and secure. All you want is someone to talk to when you need someone to talk to. So you're more selfish because you're supposed to be. You're a child. You're not here to worry about the big major stresses of life. You're here to survive and feel safe and hope that those around you who are your caretakers and your guardians to be able to do that for you. So when, let's say, your parent can't be there for a very special show you had in school, you might feel a bit neglected or left out, or like they don't care that much because you don't know yet what it is to be an adult. You don't know how hard it is to take time off for the middle of the day to look at a show when you have a busy schedule at work, right? You don't know that yet. So from the point of view of a child, this is still very valuable information and wisdom to obtain, because from that point of view, eventually you, as a person that will be a child but will grow up into your own adult and have your own children. Now when you have your own children, instead of perceiving it only from the adult that's dealing with certain elements of life, it's very easy for you to remember your experience as a child and make sure that you don't treat your child in that way. You make sure that you don't yell, even though it's easy for you to do so because maybe you grew up with people yelling at you every time they wanted you to do something, right? It's an innate impulsive behavior when that's all you know. But when you're a cycle breaker, what happens is you observe that you're doing that, becoming aware of it, so that you become aware of the unconscious aspects within you and do the work to not do it anymore, because now you can resonate with your child and you can go back and reflect on your experiences in the past and you know what that felt like, so you know better, so you do better, so you don't do it. So you become in continuation of that cycle. And that's all you need to break it. And that's just one aspect of it. This goes for everything. Let's say that you are a child that witnesses your father beat or cheat on your mother, right? And the arguments that came, and watching your mother be so heartbroken and feel so betrayed, but not really know what's happening, but know how it affected her, know what drama it caused, and knowing how it made me feel to watch all of that going on. Someone in their right mind, consciousness, right? Because remember, you're feeling these things because it's not because you're crazy and you're overseeing and you're so sensitive and you're so intense and you're overthinking. No, you're here to become aware of everything that is unconscious within that lineage. Because until someone becomes conscious of all those unconscious behaviors and actions and so on, it's going to continue. So because you were always observant and aware of your own emotions and the emotions of those around you, you know how it feels from the point of view of a child. You know that you don't like seeing all of that. You know that you don't like to feel the energy around you because, of course, like I said in the previous episode, you will be sensitive to everybody's emotional state, to the chaos around you. If there's arguments, if there's chaos going on, you're going to feel it very intensely. You're going to feel the things that you don't even know why you're feeling because no one's speaking about it. It's going to be a silent discomfort of an emotional state that maybe you can't even express or explain why you feel that way because you have no reason to, because you're picking up on the energies around you. So going back to the point of view of a child, and as we grow up, now being the adult, having a child, the molding of that experience will more than likely occur to you as well. Because remember, it is not until we reframe, rewrite, transmute, and completely alchemize and heal and release of these imprints in our genetic imprint, in our subconscious mind, from also experiencing it in our external reality and absorbing it and normalizing it, depending on how often it occurred, you think is normal as a normal person. That's all you know. So that's all I do. I'm only doing what I know. That's all I know. I don't know how to, maybe if you grew up in an environment where people didn't know how to speak with one another, communicate with one another in a very mature way, or people that maybe lacked emotional intelligence, you're going to see the dysfunction of communication and yelling and screaming and throwing and tantrums and adults and all of these things as normal behavior, if that's all you know. Because it takes for you to actually see other point of views and see how people know how to communicate when they are indeed healthy, when they are indeed in love with the other person, where when it's true love, they'll treat the other person differently, because to prove that they're right is not the goal, but to make sure that they don't hurt the person they love is, right? If you grew up in dysfunction and with people that were only together because of convenience or tolerating each other and not letting go because they feared what people would say and so on, however the story goes, you're going to think that dysfunction is normal. So it's going to be very hard for you to break out of something that you think is normal. So this is where it separates when you are actually a cycle breaker. Whether you've seen it or not, the reason why you're going to know that it's not right, or that it's dysfunctional, or that it's toxic, or that it's something that you don't want to repeat, is because not only do you remember how you felt as a child when you were seeing this in your own household as a child with maybe the adults in your experience, you're not going to want to give your child that experience. You refuse. It's already engraved in you, because more than likely when you were a child, the first thing you thought to yourself was, if I was a parent and I had a child, there's no way I would let them do that. There's no way I would do that in front of them. There's no way I would make them feel that way. There's no, you tell yourself these things early because you're conscious, not fully conscious, but you're conscious to a certain degree where you know right from wrong based only on how you feel. Because you will prioritize the way that things make you feel, because that is your censor. That is your moral compass. If it breaks my heart to hear that, and I love someone, I don't want to break their heart. So guess what happens? You're going to choose not to break the person you love's heart, whether it's your child, whether it's your partner, whether it's a family member. You are going to consciously know you don't want to do that because of the experience that you had previously. So if you're a cycle breaker, what happens is you don't have to necessarily go through the same exact thing and repeat it so many times before you decide to do the right thing. More than likely, you're learning from everybody else's experience and you're going to do it differently. And even if you're different is another form of toxic, you're going to learn from it. You're going to make sure you learn from it, because there's going to be trials and errors. You're going to go through the experience. Maybe you not wanting to do one thing, you do more of the other thing and go the complete extreme of the opposite. And maybe that's not healthy either. So you're going to realign yourself and be more balanced. But you're going to have to go through life scenarios to know what is the balance state. Because remember, you are paving a path that has not always been an example for you. If you're fortunate enough, like I was, I left my house at 16. So I had to grow up early. I had 2 jobs. I was going to high school, but I enjoyed it because I was doing what I wanted to do. My father gave me an ultimatum. He said, it is my house and my rules. And I agreed. I said, you're right. It is your house. It is your rules. I respect that, because I respect your home the same way I would want somebody to respect my home. But I don't agree with these rules and regulations because it's not fair. And this is why, A, B, and C. He didn't feel that my opinion mattered because in his eyes, I was a minor. Which, yes, in fact, technically, I was a minor still at 16. But me, in my own ability and my own sovereignty, I refused because it was not fair. And I knew that if I continued to accept or enable certain things, it will never stop. It would never stop if no one stopped it. If no one allowed them or him to see his toxic ways and how it was not the right thing to do. It was not the right way to treat. And even though, obviously, I got older, we gained our relationship back after a few years. It was never sour, but it was a shocking moment when he saw that I said, okay, your house, your rules, I'm going to move out. He projected to me his own fears, his own insecurities, and he said, you think it's easy out there. You're not going to be able to just get up and go. You're 16. What are you going to do? And I said, I will figure it out. I figured it out. Yeah, I had to work 2 jobs. Yeah, I never had a day off. Yeah, I had to go to school. But because I had to prove a point, and because I had to prove it to myself, primarily, not to him, I had to prove that I had to choose myself over the dysfunction, over feeling unsafe, over all of these aspects. Because if I didn't, then I will be betraying myself. And I saw what betraying yourself looked like in those that came before me. I saw how having fears of what am I going to do? How am I going to afford it? Am I going to be safe? I saw what that mindset did to those that felt that same way and didn't do it because of all the projections that were received and taken in as truth, and the lack of belief in self did. But thankfully, I also had the example of knowing that, yeah, you can survive on your own as a woman. You can't do it on your own. You could go to college and have a job and have your own apartment. You could do this and you could do that and you could build your house here and live here for, like, I was fortunate to have these examples in my life, because I think that if I didn't, I probably wouldn't have the courage at that point at 16. But I think I was more upset about what was going on than I was afraid of the outcome, of my consequence, of the causing effect. Because all I wanted was to get out of that dysfunction. All I wanted was my own space, my own authority. That's all I wanted. I didn't even care how I was going to get it. I was going to get it, but I didn't care how. I just wanted that. So I worked at Starbucks. I worked in Armani Exchange, and I went to high school and I finished my senior year and I was done. And then I worked more and I got a corporate job after that, but I made it happen and I've been on my own since. It was extremely hard. And I wouldn't want my own children to have to go through that because it was not easy. I missed out on so many years of my teenage life in school, at least, because of all the working, of all the stresses that I had to go through, not eating as good as I should have, and all of these things. But I made it through. And because I made it through, and because I made it happen, not only was I living through the examples that I was given, I was giving the next generation the courage and the belief that they can also do the same thing. Why? Because they've seen it happen multiple times at this point. So when you do that, all it takes is one person, one example. And sometimes it doesn't have to be the extreme. It could be a little bit of something. It could be the first one to finish college. It could be the first one to move out on their own without having to have a man. It could be the first one to get their masters. It could be the first one to anything, but as long as you're doing something that's moving everyone in your lineage forward, that's all that really matters. Because that is you breaking out of the molding that limit the past generations, that limit them into settling for what was convenient, for the lack of proper treatment because of the circumstances, because of the fear of being alone, because of the fear of not having enough, because of the whatever belief system was holding them hostage in that oppression, right? And when it comes to abuse of anyone, whether it's your own as a child or your child or their child or you as an adult, as a woman or a man, it doesn't matter. When you start to see that and you don't think that needs to stop because it's not right, and instead you continue on to repeat the same abuse, then you're not conscious. Because to be conscious, it's automatically putting you in the position of creating or breaking cycles. Because that is all it takes. You're breaking the chains of ignorance. Because it is only through ignorance that we learn to accept things that should not be accepted. We learn to enable things, behaviors, and toxic dysfunctions, and addictions, and disloyalty, and betrayal. Because we fear not having a belonging. We fear not having that person. We fear what people would say. We tell ourselves these stories and we enable. And we enable because of these stories that we tell ourselves. Even fear of what people would say if everything goes sour. And it's like you care what people would say about the things that they can see because they can't see what's even worse happening. That's really what you have to ask yourself. They would see that you're alone because you left someone that was abusive, that was cheating on you. You think that you want to fear that, but you don't. You want to make believe. You rather stay and pretend that you're happy. You rather stay and pretend and be miserable and feel insecure in your own relationship and feel that you deserve better, but you don't have the willpower or what it takes to get better because you don't think you would ever get it. It's like, where is the dysfunction there? Where is the healing that needs to take place? Which is the next aspect. You're going to step in the position of not only becoming aware of your own toxic ways among those around you, because of course you're going to carry on a lot of that stuff too. It is in your imprint. You have to take full accountability of where you need to take accountability of your own behaviors, of your own distortions, right? And insecurities and fears. Because it is not until we heal those aspects within ourselves where we stop aligning ourselves to those situations, to those individuals, to those places, to those relationships, because there is a resonance in us that is aligning us to attract or feel attraction towards people that are not always good for us, for example. Why? Because familiarity. It feels familiar. And it feels familiar because we've been dealing with it for generations, the same energy. And I'm going to put this in an example. We feel that we have chemistry with the man that resonates, something that reminds us of our father, for example, because that's what feels familiar. But the only reason we feel attraction towards that man is because we have to experience the experience of dealing with the same behavior that our father gave our mother, so that when we experience it, it ends with us. And the only reason we thought we had chemistry with that person is because the only chemistry we're feeling is the attraction of the same behavior that carries the signature of, let's say, a cheater. Because we need to deal with the cheater before we can deal with the healthy man, if that is in our lineage. We need to deal with the abuser if that's what we keep accepting back in our lineage. If you are the cycle breaker, you have to unfortunately go through the experiences that was embodied within your lineage in order to break it. Why? Because in order for you to break the bondage of an energetic signature that is embedded in your genetic imprint and activates itself through the activation of an environment or a scenario that now allows the epigenetic within you to activate, you need to go through the same scenario. So what does that look like? So like I just said, if you have experienced or have had in your lineage men who are womanizers, abusers, and cheaters, you will not be attracted to the healthy man that's right for you until you break free from that trait, from being attracted to what is familiar to you. And until that is not done, if you are truly the cycle breaker, you will not receive the right man for you, because you're here to break the attraction that you have towards what is not right for you, what is not right for you or anyone in your lineage, in fact. And it only continues because no one has had the willpower to say no to that very thing. Meaning they continue to enable toxic behavior because till life do us part, they betray themselves because of a man-made contract that makes them choose themselves over the behavior that not only is dangerous to some degree. For example, if a cheater is a cheater, he's not only cheating, he's bringing in unknown energies to you, right? From God knows what and God knows where. Whether that's physically through the possibility of a disease or spiritually through the soul ties that he's now creating with complete strangers, bringing it to you and your sensitive self as a cycle breaker, because now you feel it. Now you're going to pick up on it. Now you're not going to be at peace with yourself because you're picking up on what's really happening. You can't quite prove it yet, but you feel it. And it is in this process that unfortunately you have to go through, because here in this experience in itself, let's say, you're going to have to learn how to trust your own intuition, because your intuition will tell you what's going on. And in the generations before us, let's say that these cheaters also were narcissists and they used to gaslight the crap out of these women. And the women would feel like maybe they were overly reacting or overthinking or wrong. Maybe he is saying the truth. Maybe he's not doing that behind my back, even though internally I know what I feel. But guess what? I'm not going to argue with it. I don't have proof. And just let it go. But internally it's driving you nuts. Internally is making you sick even at times, because you're going against yourself. So when you're the cycle breaker in a situation like that, you're going to feel these things. But of course, because you are the cycle breaker and your purpose is to break it, you're going to get everything you need to break free. There's no way in hell that the universe is going to let you sit there. Because if you don't do it yourself, you will be forced out. They will make sure that that person becomes so toxic, so distorted, so obvious, that is going to take a miracle for you to stay, honestly. And that's another spiritual sign you will know. That what you thought was just a thought or an assumption, when your intuition is telling you, so that you can get the message, so that you can pick up and go. If you don't accept those subtle intuitive signs and you do what your ancestors were doing. Oh, no, no, no. That's not allowed. Not on your book. Because you didn't come here to repeat the cycle. You came here to break it. You came here to rewrite it. You came to reframe the whole story. So everything that's not supposed to happen, that you think is not supposed to happen, will start to happen because you're not meant to stay there. That person was just one of your lessons. So that in the embodiment of this emotional state, of this experience, you capture, encapsulate the energy that everyone before you had experienced, whether it's the pain of heartbreak or betrayal. And at that moment, instead of swallowing that and enabling it and putting it under the rug, you're going to be the one that's going to say, no, 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 this is going to end with me right here. This is not what we're accepting. In fact, you're going to do it. It takes a while because there's another element to cycle breaking, which I want to go more in depth to, but not in this video. But basically what you're doing is not only are you breaking the chains, you're rewriting the vibrational signature to where when that energy even comes around your lineage or your vibrational imprint again, you're repulsed by it. It makes you sick. It makes you want to gag. It makes you like whatever the attraction was, you're no longer attracted. It's not sticking. It's a complete opposite. It's a complete repellent. Because the work that you have to do once you make the decision to break free from those chains that has continued to be repeated, now there's some other work you're going to have to do to really solidify it. So not only you, but everyone else after that doesn't accept it, because it's going to feel so disgusting. You're going to make me feel so sick. You're going to look at it like it's the scum at the bottom of a barrel of manure. It's going to feel that way. And when you know you have broken the cycle, you're going to feel like you just woke up from a nightmare. You're going to feel repelled. You're not going to have any attraction to that energy at all. In fact, you're going to know. You're going to be so familiar with the energy, by the way, that when you see it and you sense it and you feel it, you're going to be, it's like your face is going to twitch. Unconsciously, by the way. You're not even going to realize it's happening because you have done that much work on completely breaking the ties to that generational curse that you are no longer accepted as something that you are attracted to. It's going to be the complete opposite. So when you're balancing the scale, that's basically what you're doing. You have to go through the experiences that the same thing that happened to your generations ago, your ancestors generations ago, for example, you're going to have to go through experiences that are going to allow you to feel what they felt, that created that fear, or to go through the experiences that now molded them to act and behave in certain ways. Or you don't really have to go through the grits of it, but as long as you go through enough of it, where you have enough energetic charge of what exactly that energy signature is, then once you have enough of it, you have enough to encapsulate it and transmute it from within. So that is where the alchemical process of being a cycle breaker comes in, because there's more to it. First off, like I said previously in the last video, if you're a cycle breaker, you're gonna know just on these few signs that I've given. I don't even think I've given you all of them because I've been extending it a little longer. But just know that you are equipped, you are built, and you are born for it. So everything you need, you will have. Where you're not supposed to be, you're going to get removed if you're not supposed to be. Whoever's not supposed to be around you after that expiration date comes in, it's going to just be forced to not be around you anymore. Because it's not just a you thing. This is bigger than you. Like I said before, this is bigger than you. This is not only you doing it for the ones that are still alive, but your entire lineage of your ancestors got your back. Because they're like, yeah, you need to make sure you do that. And we're not gonna let you be happy here. This is not where you're gonna be, because you don't know it yet. But yeah, this is gonna turn out like what happened to me back in 1902. You just don't see it yet, but we're gonna make sure you see it before you settle into that situation, so you don't repeat that cycle. So when you see the red flags, we're gonna nudge you like, hey, remember that? To the point, like it happened to me, to the point that I had expressed something about myself to someone, and it was not something that they were too fond of, right? And this is another way that spiritually you will know that you're a cycle breaker. They were not too fond of what I had just expressed, and they judged it. And I found that interesting, because I'm not prone to judging people's likes and dislikes, or what they do and what they don't do. But the fact that that happened, I was like, okay, that might be a red flag. And when I said that might be a red flag to myself, not out loud, they said something again, and the alarm at the restaurant goes off. Like, alarm. And I was like, what is going on? How are the alarms just going off? Little did I know that that very same energy that that individual was carrying was an energy of an ancestor had experienced, that very same energy through a scenario that had completely tainted, in a very negative way, the lineage. In a way that, had I not released that immediately, after that one, that's what it took, that one thing. Because after that, what happens is, they will show you in your dreams. They're going to show you who and what that energy is, and what they did in previous lives, and why this is the moment that we've been waiting to break the tie before it ever constructs itself. So that not only does it heal the current state, but because of the no in that moment, it saves the past generation in a way, because it ripples out. So now the way it was experienced and perceived in the vision they gave me in my dream is not as intense, because I'm coming with my conscious awareness towards that experience and seeing it from the eyes of the abused, and realizing, okay, I'm going to change that. And it was as if I made sure to come down and descend to that level of consciousness, so that that energy I can come across again, so that by coming across that energy again, right there I solidify the breaking of that contract throughout all time frames, throughout all eternity, by simply saying no and not continuing in that situation. And it was so well orchestrated by my spiritual team that I even came with expiration date as to the last time I needed to speak to that person, through something I was watching on that same exact day that said, and this is the release, and this is the day we bury it. And it had the same date that I was watching it, which was the same date that I broke everything off on that same day. And that's called the synchronicity of the perfect alignment that gives you the messages that you need exactly when you need it, because you're not doing this alone. You may feel alone at times. You may seem like you are alone, but honey, you are not alone. And if you need to hear this, just hear it out clearly. You are not alone. Not only do you have your own team backing you up, your ancestors, God, make sure you stay one in the union with God, because in just that alone, the level of courage and faith and everything that you need internally will always be there through your divine alignment, right? Because to be away from the divine is putting yourself in a disadvantage, when you will always need God in this process. And I don't like to get all spiritual, and I'm not religious, but I'm definitely very spiritual and very in tune with the divine. And I know that there's so many aspects that I'm not even going to go into it. Just know that you will believe in God in this process. Because had it not been for the divine, so many things would have went completely different if there wasn't a God, like I say. So your faith will definitely grow, if not already, will grow in this journey throughout time, throughout everything that you know internally. When you learn to trust yourself and believe in your own innate ability to know what is right and what is wrong for you, to know not to betray yourself, to know not to follow the advice of anything or anyone outside of you, because you have your own channel. You're always going to have your guiding system going on. There hasn't been one time in my life that I've made a decision and I felt that that decision was made on my own. Like, there's always been an internal intuitive nudge or guidance that I knew that I was being either shown something, guided towards something, shielded and protected from something. Always, since I was a child. As a child, I've done things that I'm like, how did I even know to do that? Because I never been alone. And if you're a cycle breaker, I guarantee you, you're not alone. The unseen is always with you. And even though you can't always see it, you can feel it. You will be in the knowing of it. So I don't know where else to go with this in terms of, the spiritual signs. If I haven't shared all of them, I'll probably give you another part, even though this part is so long and I didn't want to make it this long. But I feel like everything I share with you is important in the knowing that, once again, you're not alone. You're cherished and loved and supported and always guided. Don't externalize any answers that you may need for yourself, because you have always been told what you need to know. You have always been shown what you need to know, is whether if you accept the truth and you are not in denial of it, if you're not attached to these circumstances or people, places, or stories that you want to continue telling yourself. When you're a cycle breaker, you have to be willing to accept the truth for what it is. It doesn't matter how upsetting it is, how disappointing it is. It is the truth that will set you free so that you don't repeat the cycle and you can break free from the bondage and the chains that has restricted not only you, but your lineage. And it is because many of us in the past have not been able to accept certain truths, because we have been in denial, because we refuse to believe that that person that supposedly loved us would do this, or that situation occurred because of this. Sometimes you are shown everything you need to know, and it is your responsibility to take it in consideration and decide how to move forward after that. Because if you do, there will be bigger consequences. If you deny it, you will stop receiving the messages, because it will be a pattern that you don't receive the messages, you don't take the advice, so you'll be fending for yourself. But when you are taking the advice and you see that the outcome has always been what it needs to be for yourself and your growth and your evolution and your safety, then you're like, okay, I'm not taking this for granted. I'm going to not only be grateful for this guidance and this protection that I have, but I'm not going to neglect of it. I'm not going to ignore it. I don't care what anything or anyone outside of me is saying. When you are one with the divine in yourself, you don't need to call people for advice. You're always being given advice, whether it's through synchronicities, whether it's through random people telling you exactly what you needed to hear at that moment, whether it's through your dreams, whether it's just through your gut feeling that you know something's off, and follow that. Don't neglect your own inner knowing because you don't want to seem weird, or you don't want to make someone feel bad or something like that. Like, don't care to be so nice. Being nice is not a good thing. Being kind is a good thing, meaning I can be kind and treat you with respect, right? And not slander you or not abuse you. But that doesn't mean I'm going to betray myself. That doesn't mean I'm going to neglect my own needs, my own wants, my own desires. What I need, if I need to step away and remove myself, I'm going to do that. I don't care how you feel about it. In fact, I don't have to explain myself to you. But kindly, deeply within my heart, I appreciate you understanding. And if you don't, then that's okay also. That's being kind. So don't confuse being nice and being kind. You want to be kind, you don't want to be nice. Nice comes from a place of being naive, don't want to ruffle feathers. You don't want to create conflict. It's fact. I don't like creating conflict neither. That's why at this point in my life, conflict never happens. Why? Because if I don't agree with something, I'll say it once. I'll tell you how I feel about it once. If the behavior doesn't change, I'll just remove myself. That's simple. And, feel how you want to feel about it. For you to question what happened, it's on you. I already shared what I needed to share. I don't like this. I don't like that. I don't like the way I feel. I don't like the treatment. I don't have to explain myself, but I mean, when are we going to break that cycle of enabling these toxic ways, these gaslighting moments that people want to give us to feel guilty about not acting the way they want us to act so they can use us, deplete us, abuse us, use us? What? No, I don't like the way I feel around you. I don't like the way you make me feel. I don't like how this job is going. I don't like how this relationship is treating me. And that's it. Bing. That is setting the boundaries, keeping myself preserved in my health, in my sanity, and my emotional state with great spiritual hygiene. That's all. So when a person really cares about you and understands that, they're going to respect your boundaries, they're going to respect your opinions and your beliefs and not wanting to go over those boundaries. But if they do, then they're telling you everything you need to know about the situation. So is that really someone you want to have around you? Because when you're a cycle breaker, you're breaking free from all of that guilt, from all of that necessity, from all of those codependencies, from all of those limiting fears and beliefs that you had that kept everyone prior stuck in misery and unhappiness and dissatisfaction and unhealthiness. No, we're not doing that anymore. You came here to set the tone, and people will only continue doing that which you enable them to do. And if you stop enabling it and tolerating it, it will stop with you. And all it takes is for one person to stop. It doesn't take for everyone. If everyone that's still alive wants to continue, let them continue. There's no wrong or right. But if one person does it, at least you're allowing another pathway for those to come in the next generation to decide differently. It's meaning they're having the choice. We're giving them the option to decide for themselves because they've seen the example. Just like I had examples of what it looks like to succeed, to start a healthy family, to build your own house. All these examples, right? From the women in my family, for example. I've had very strong women around me my whole life, so I've had great examples. I also had distorted and weak examples. But guess what? They both served me. They served me because I saw the contrast. They served me because I saw what works and what doesn't, at least for me. Yeah, I don't like the way that looks. I don't like the way that feels. I don't like what situation that's going on. I'll make sure never to do that. You learn from people's experiences and then you create your own path. So if you had contrasts of examples in your life where you can compare and contrast and choose and pick and take what you like and remove what you don't like, then you've been very fortunate. Like I have. I've been very, very fortunate to have the best of both worlds on both aspects, right? So I'm grateful for that. But anyway, I digress, and I want to end this here as I feel that I've shared enough and I've given somewhat of a good point of view of what this looks like. And if you have any questions, any comments, or any opinions, really, just comment below on wherever you are seeing or listening to this episode. And if you listen this far, I appreciate your presence and thank you.